This show is clean, pretty much.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Episode 684. Hello, I'm Mike Matthews, broadcasting from the last place on Earth located somewhere in PodCastro Valley, California. Today, Chely Shoehart, Floyd the Floorman, John Deere the Engineer, plus the return of the much-loved feature Into an Interview, where I speak with international traveler and adventurer LAUREL POETON about travel and stuff happening closer to PodCastro Valley, California. And what's this? Mike's Daily Podcast. Some interesting discovery made in Peru. Is it a kiss? Mike's Daily Podcast. Oh, we'll find out in this show today. Now, yesterday's show, we had Madame Rutabaga revealed something we probably didn't want to know, and that is she used to date Mitch McConnell. Okay, that's better than Rosie O'Donnell, or maybe not. I don't know. Sort of a thing that I can't decide. Mike's Daily Podcast. I'm not the decider, but I am someone who is a strong advocate for sidewalks. Mike's Yes. Daily in PodCastro Valley Podcast. We're missing sidewalks here and there. I particularly notice it when I'm wheeling my suitcase down to the BART station, which is about a 2-mile walk from my house, and I'm noticing, sidewalk gone. I've got to pull my through the dirt. Got to pull my suitcase through the dirt now. Oh, now I'm on gravel. Now I'm on whatever. Why can't there just be one consistent sidewalk on the streets? Other places in the Bay Area do. So that's something that it's weird. It's followed me. Because when I lived in Alabama, before I moved to PodCastro Valley, California, I lived in Alabama, and there, sidewalks, forget about it. There was, I am a walker. That's my workout of choice. My exercise of choice is to walk, go on nice walks, and I would try to walk around my house in Alabama. And the potential for me being hit by a car was insane. Cars just whizzing. There's no sidewalks on the side of the road. When a car comes, you've got to actually jump into the grass. There's grass everywhere. Grass grows like crazy in Alabama. Everybody's got riding mowers. Everybody prides themselves on riding mowers. That's the thing. I didn't buy a riding mower when I lived in Alabama. And when I say this, people are always in shock. Literally, electric shock, because that's what I got. An electric lawnmower when I was in Alabama. And I used it with the cord, and I would mow my lawn, which when you buy a house in Alabama, it comes with a huge lawn. And I'm mowing this gigantic lawn where you could play a rugby match on, and with this cord, I ran over the cord once, which is pretty good. Over the 2 years that we lived in Alabama, only once, but that's in Alabama. It was treacherous walking down the roads. It's a beautiful. There are parts of that state that are so beautiful, but there's just nowhere to walk. No side. I couldn't understand it. Oh, and if you do jump into the grass when a car is coming by, you either sink into mud, red mud, because that's all they got. They got a lot of red dirt in Alabama. That's where the Crimson Tide thing came from, and Roll Tide and all that. The grass is crazy full of ticks. I got ticks twice. And for some reason, they always like to settle around my belly. I must be really juicy right there. The other thing I wanted to point out was I did not know this. In 1990, I was still at UCSB, still going to school, wrapping up my communications degree. And I'm an excellent communicator, aren't I, when I actually complete a sentence? And I was in a play with some other folk. We were doing a Shakespeare play, All's Well That Ends Well. I played the King of France, and I'm still friends with the director of the play. She lives maybe about 30 minutes away from me here in the Bay Area. The day that Tears for Fears came to the Santa Barbara County Bowl was a big day for a lot of the students at UCSB. A lot of them went. I did not go, but I heard a lot about it after the show, and I used to just totally regret the fact that I did not go to that show. I was working part-time in radio at the time. I possibly could have gotten tickets. You sometimes, Even though I was low man on the totem pole, they'd occasionally throw me a bone. And that was kind of disgusting when they did. But when Tears for Fears came to town, everybody talked about it, and I always regretted missing the show. Turns out that concert is on YouTube. Yay, YouTube. I watched it last night. It is a concert they did called Going to Calfiornia. And 1990 was when Sowing the Seeds of Love was really big. So they did that song. Oleta Adams was with the band, and she was fantastic. She also does one of their songs, I Believe. And they did all their big hits like Mad, Mad World, Pale Shelter, Change. Of course, Everybody Wants to Rule the World, and Shout. They did not do my favorite Tears for Fears song, or one of my favorites, The Working Hour. This is the working hour. We are saved by those who learn from our mistakes. Love that one. And you realize while you're watching this that this band is not long for this world, that the two of them were about to break up, Kurt Smith and Roland Orzabal, the nucleus of Tears for Fears. Kurt sings a lot of the big songs, Pale Shelter, Change, Everybody Wants to Rule the World. Roland sings Shout, Sowing the Seeds of Love. He sang a lot more of their later stuff. In fact, when Kurt left the band then, about a year or so after that concert took place, Roland continued Tears for Fears and had that song, Break It Down Again. But the band never was as big as it was in those days in the 80s. But watching Roland Orzabal sing, you watch him sing today and compare him against all the kids that you see performing on American Idol and The Voice. You go, this guy is talented. His voice has got to be several octaves. He can hit these insane high notes, and he's got this beautiful, rich voice. He and Kurt Smith did eventually make up, and they came out with an album in the O's. And then Kurt Smith appeared recently on one of the final episodes of Psych, where he's actually singing Everyone Wants to Rule the World as he's pulling up in a convertible, and then he gets attacked by zombies. So that's Tears for Fears. Roland Orzabal, Kurt Smith, they really did sort of an Everly Brothers thing. They like to sing harmony with each other from time to time. Thank you, YouTube, for having that concert. Although it's not the best quality video, it's probably a copy of a copy of a copy, but it was still fun to watch. Look who just walked in.
Hello, Mike Matthews. It's Chely Shoehart, the gift shop supervisor. What the heck were you just talking about?
The band from the 80s, Tears for Fears.
Did they sing the song Everybody Wang Chung tonight?
No, that was the group Wang Chung. Also two guys that traded off lead vocals, used a lot of synthesizers. I think they even had the same producer.
Okay, like all that stuff you just said, like I was just thinking of waves crashing on the beach.
That's a beautiful image. Look who else just walked in. Hello, Mike, this is Floyd the Floorman!
And this is John Deere, the engineer. Mike, they don't put sidewalks everywhere because sometimes there's no money in the budget for them.
Oh. Well, tell that to my suitcase wheels.
Mike, you could always pay for a sidewalk where you see that there's one missing. You could pay for that yourself and put that in.
A sidewalk for somebody else? Oh, I guess that could be a charitable thing that I could spend a lot of money to do.
Yes, Mike, you're charitable, aren't you?
Yeah, that's why I do this show. I do it for free. That's a lot of charity right out of my mouth to entertain the masses.
I don't think that's what you do for the masses. At most, you slightly annoy them.
You say potato, I say potato. Mike, did you just say you made French fries? I'm hungry because I'm Floyd the Floorman. I don't know where you got that from that. Well, Peru, this is interesting, that what I was telling you about earlier, going on in Peru. Everyone loves a good fair. Even the ancient Paracas people of Peru. In fact, they littered the desert with stones just to make sure everyone got there safe and sound and on time, according to UPI.com. The Paracas people populated modern-day Peru's Chincha Valley from 800 to 100 BC. The Paracas, like their cultural ancestors, the Nazca, had a habit of building geoglyphs, a large motif constructed of rocks and other durable natural elements. Geoglyphs are found throughout history and serve practical purposes nearly as often as artistic ones. Now, a new study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences credits the Paracas with 2 types of geoglyphs, each acting like signposts, helping lead the way to an ancient gathering place, like a fairground that we have today. One method included scattering rocks in a long line. The other involved scraping the dark desert soil off the bright limestone underneath, forming an apparent white line. In both cases, this study confirmed the giant lines would have been easily visible to those descending the hills of the valley 2,000 years ago. They say, quote, they are converting this landscape into a big theater, and the ultimate goal is to bring people together to market, exchange goods, manufacture goods, exchange marriage partners, gossip, do all the things people like doing, said an archaeologist at the University of California. The research colleagues also discovered 3 large mounds, which they deduced served ceremonial purposes. The mounds correspond with pairs of geoglyphs that would have guided ancient people in the direction of the sunset on the winter solstice in June. Because there is no evidence that the Paracas lived near the mounds, they conclude that they served as central gathering places. And they go on to say, when you stand behind the mounds and you're facing the sunset, and we were there for the solstice, the sun gets right on the mound, and if you're a human being standing there, the sun melts right on your head. It's very impressive. Ooh, wouldn't that be cool to see? What do you think about that? What do you think about the Peruvians and the Paracas and the interesting culture and history that is in that part of the world? Email me, mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. We read your comments on the section emails from email. Also email me there if you'd like to be a guest on the show or if you'd like to sponsor the show, mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. And check out the website, mikesdailypodcast.com. We got links of where to find this show in iTunes. Subscribe to this show in iTunes, and you can rate and comment on the show there. There's also the link to where to find us on Facebook. Like the Facebook page, and when I post a new show, share it with your friends so more people find out about us. You can also find us on Twitter, Tumblr, Yelp, Mixcloud, SoundCloud, Spreaker, and YouTube. We also have the Amazon deal of the day. Click on that and buy something, and that helps out the show. And it's also a discounted item. Whatever the special discounted item is, you can find at mikesdailypodcast.com. Maybe something for your mom for Mother's Day. What do they have for mom today? Ooh, up to 70% off necklace gifts and free 1-day shipping. Ooh. And you can also find the blog and the daily podcast picture at mikesdailypodcast.com and Mike's Daily Podcast Radio, although I'm getting a little fed up with radiotomy. They told me yesterday via email that I need to have at least my show, my radio station needs to be listened to for at least 12 hours a day by an average of listeners listening to it for 12 hours a day, or they take it off within 3 months. So that pretty much is going to go away in about a month or two. So just letting you know, you can listen to Mike's Daily Podcast Radio, which features great music and past podcasts there at mikesdailypodcast.com. You can find it on the left-hand side.
Into an interview.
And you're in a good spot to talk?
Yeah, totally.
Rawsome. Rawsome. Those like rad but awesome together. And
how do you spell that?
It's like, I guess like you're spelling something's raw and then some rawsome, I guess. But
yeah, I would say RAWWWRAWESOME.
That's it. That's easy enough to spell.
Yeah.
So, Laurel Poeton.
Yes.
And you are an adventurer. And
I do like adventures, yes. I used to have a lot more time in my life to adventure more, but I still get out to adventure at least once or twice a year. I prefer to leave the country if and when possible.
Wow, what was the last one?
The last one, so about 4 years ago now, I convinced my parents that we should spend Thanksgiving outside of the United States, and actually was born out of my own personal desire to be out of the country for Thanksgiving. And when I mentioned it to my parents, my dad was like, well, I want to go. So I had to I was originally going to go to Oaxaca for the week, but I realized that city is not very conducive to people who are not as nimble on their feet. So we changed, or I invited them to go to Mazatlan, which is on the west coast of Mexico. And because they're in their 70s, they're like, let's go to a resort. And I'd never been to a resort before. And it was unlike any other kind of leaving the country that I'd done, but it was really nice and relaxing to stare at the water for a week and read books with my mom and dad on the beach, and it was awesome. Yeah.
So
before that, one of my best friends lives in Sweden, and she now has 2 children, and we've made a pact to see each other every other year so that Auntie Laurel can see the children in person.
Oh, okay. And do you travel then to different areas to meet?
Well, right now the children are young, but it's funny that you should say that. The last time, so Sonia and I Skype once a week, every Thursday night for me, Friday morning for her. And we've decided that once the kids get old enough, like one's 4 and one's 2, but when they get old enough, we will meet in different countries. Right now, I've only gone to Sweden the past 2 times. To visit her and her husband and her children.
Oh, now that's different from Mazatlan.
Yes, very different. Going to Sweden in the summertime is so strange. It stays daylight till like midnight, and then the sun rises again at 3 to 4.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, dang. So you can get a lot done in a day then.
Yeah. I was like, if I worked here, I'd be so productive.
Are people taking naps a lot?
I would, yeah. I mean, I would get an afternoon nap in with the kids, and so that was kind of nice. I never really slept through the entire night. Like, we would go to bed around 11, and then I would wake up at like 4 when the sun rose up, and I would go for a little walk. And because it was Sweden, I felt so safe. Just like they live in this area where the cars don't come near the houses. Like the houses, the cars all stay outside of the dwelling areas, and there's only bike paths and walking paths through the housing areas. And then you can ride your bike into town really easily. Yeah, it's definitely the most amazing bike planning place I've been in.
And this is Bike Month.
It is May. It's Bike Month. May 8th is Bike to Work Day.
And I should say that Laurel works with the Alameda CTC. That's not that's not the disease people, right? That's the
No. It's the Alameda County Transportation Commission. We administer the half-cent sales tax for transportation funding here in Alameda County. That is your Measure B tax dollars at work.
We had a Measure B. And was that before 2009? Because I moved here in 2009.
Yes, originally passed by the voters in 1986. It was renewed again in 2000. And our agency actually passed legislation last year to bring it back to the voters this November 4th, 2014, to ask them to augment and extend the current half-cent sales tax.
I see. Okay. But you guys help out with transportation, and that's why it's Bike Month. It's like you're trying to promote people riding bikes.
Yeah, so transportation as far as like not only public transportation, but local streets and roads, highways, bike paths, pedestrian paths. We work with a lot of our local advocacy groups, such as Bike East Bay, which is a really great organization that promotes projects to keep people who bike on the road safe, and they are really amazing to work with. We also work with another group called Genesis, which really advocates for student transit pass programs and youth empowerment of and senior empowerment of independents riding public transportation.
I liked that band when Peter Gabriel was still with them.
I liked it too. They were really good. Actually, I think I was a bit young, but I really liked that band for sure.
And I'm enjoying the birds that are tweeting behind you. Are those real birds, or are they constructed, for the ambiance?
No, they're real birds. I'm standing outside of my office here at 1111 Broadway. We have a little Zen garden. I could walk over by the waterfall if you wanted to hear some water falling against rocks. But yeah, I live and work in downtown Oakland, and I like it a lot. There's nature and urban combined, which is really exciting.
Did you bring any ideas back from Sweden to help them out in Oakland? Like,
Man. Yeah, I would love to have more communities with no cars in them, but that's my personal opinion. Yeah. I mean, San Francisco has been trying to get that type of tax where you have to pay more money to drive into the center of it. And I used to live there for a couple years, and I really liked it. Like, when I was in London, I just loved how there was no cars in the middle of the city. Like, there was only those big buses, the double-decker buses. That was really fun.
So you were in London?
Yeah.
What was that trip like?
That trip was a whirlwind trip. I went to Ireland for 2 weeks to Bantry Bay to visit my grandmother's hometown with my mother and father. It was my dad's mother. And then from Bantry Bay, I went to London to visit a good friend who I had met while she was hitchhiking here in the States in Oregon. And then from London, I went to Sweden to visit my friend Sonia and her husband before they had some children. And then I went back to London, and then I went to Dublin. So I took about a month off of work. And then when I came back from that month-long vacation, I realized that I just had a different view of work ethic than the people who I had been working with at that time, and I decided to move on.
I see. Now that would definitely happen when you're traveling to all and seeing how life is outside of your bubble, working and all that. It opens your mind, huh? Yeah, definitely. And I enjoy it, definitany. But what
I want to do more.
You've done, so all this traveling you've done, are there any tips you can give for like finding good airfare when you're looking online? Do you have any
well, I mean, for the European continent, Ryanair is really your best bet. You can buy tickets for a penny. You just pay the tax. I can't wait till the American airlines that function here catch on to that like they could actually sell more tickets if they lower their costs rather than, I mean, so I now live in California, and my parents still live in Vermont, and I feel like every time I go to look for tickets to the East Coast, they just keep getting more and more expensive, and I don't really understand why.
And Ryanair is cheaper?
Ryanair is as a European, what do you call them, airline, that they kind of fly into not main airports. So, I can't remember exact towns, but you can get all over the European continent on Ryanair. You just can't get into the main airport. So there is an added cost of having to take a bus or a train into the central business district, but it's still worth it. I'm not joking when I say you can get a plane ticket on Ryanair for a penny and you just pay the tax cost.
I see. Okay. Yeah. There was Allegiant Air that used to fly into places.
I haven't tried them yet.
Around, because I used to live in Huntsville, Alabama, and that would be the one cool airline that would go in there, and you could go from there to Vegas for really cheap or something. But now they left Huntsville. I don't even know if they're still in business.
Allegiant, they do. They fly up into Canada, and they fly into Montana. I think they fly out of Oakland, actually.
Oh.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, and Oakland's actually getting a direct flight. A Norwegian airline is coming in, direct flight from Oakland to Norway, which will be really convenient.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, now if you can't travel by bus or plane, there's always truck.
Yes, there is always truck.
Tell me about your truck adventures.
So before I did the European continent, I mainly stuck to the American states. And 1 year I drove cross country back and forth twice, just because I had a lot of time on my hands and friends that were moving to California or Colorado. And then one summer, one of my best friends, and I drove a U-Haul truck down to Virginia, and we drove from Vermont to Virginia, and we weren't quite sure how we were going to get home, and so we decided to make an adventure out of it. So we hiked from Virginia through North Carolina, through the Smoky Mountains.
Whoa.
That was our way to get to the West Coast, and then we got to the Outer Banks of North Carolina, which are one of the most beautiful places that I've ever been.
Really?
Yeah, Cape Hatteras is a really great location or like tourist destination. It has the most famous lighthouse that they actually, when Topher and I were there a year later, they moved the lighthouse like half a mile because the eroding of the ocean was coming up too close to the lighthouse. So yeah, that was really cool. You can camp out on the Outer Banks seaside for free because it's a state park.
Huh.
Yeah, at least we did.
So you hiked all the way there?
Yeah, we hiked through the state of North Carolina, across the Smoky Mountains, which is part of the Appalachian Trail. Nice. Yeah, it was really fun. So we were in the Outer Banks, and we decided, we needed to head north of Vermont. So we just started hitchhiking from the Outer Banks, and one of the rides that we got, I think it was a little south of Washington, D.C., was this trucker who picked us up. And he was a very nice, kind trucker. Truckers aren't legally supposed to pick up hitchhikers, so I'm not going to say his name so that he doesn't get in trouble, even though this was like 10 years ago.
We'll call him Large Marge.
Large Marge. So Large Marge was smart enough to stop before how trucks have to go through weigh stations to make sure that they haven't exceeded the weight. So we would wait at diners or pull-offs on the highways for the weigh stations to close, so that then he could get us further north.
He did that for you?
Yeah, it was really kind. It was very sweet.
What did he have in his truck?
We were with him for like 2 to 3, almost 3 days, and halfway through the last day, in the morning of the last day, it was the trucker was driving, and I was in the passenger seat, and my friend Topher was asleep they have those beds in the cabs, and the trucker turned to me, he's like, "Do you want a story to tell the grandchildren?" I was like, "Yes, Large Marge, I do. What are we going to do here? As long as it's okay and safe." He's like, "Do you want to drive this thing?" And I seriously thought that Santa Claus had shown up, or the Tooth Fairy had just granted me all of my wishes. So I was like, "Yes, please." So we were on the highway, so we put it in cruise control. We switched seats. And it's still in cruise control. He's like, "I don't want you to have to deal with all the shifting." And so, it was a good 5 minutes. And my friend Topher wakes up in the bed, sits up, looks at me in the driver's seat, looks at the driver in the passenger seat, lays back down, sits back up, and is like, "Oh, what?" And then we all died of laughter. And,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. It was awesome, definitely. So,
how far did you drive?
It was only a good 10 minutes because we there was some construction and I started to get nervous, but it was definitely a dream come true.
Oh my gosh, Laurel. Wow. Well, yeah, that's amazing. I want to do one little other quick segment with you. So
okay.
Hold on the line. This part we just did will be for today, and then the next will be on Wednesday. So
cool.
We'll have more stories with Laurel tomorrow here on Mike's Daily Podcast. As we go outside of the last place on earth where we bring you Mike's Daily Podcast, somewhere in PodCastro Valley, California.
And here's today's podcast picture.
And since we were discussing Alameda and that the Alameda County, and Jack London Square is right across from Alameda, the island of Alameda, and I took a picture of that where the ferry was coming back from San Francisco, about to dock near Jack London Square, and the sun is setting. You see Alameda behind it, and there you go. That's in honor of Laurel Poeton. who we have on today's show and tomorrow's show. We'll wrap up our interview and talk about a couple other things going on in Alameda County that the Alameda CTC is doing and some interesting travels that Laurel has done. That'll be on tomorrow's show, and you can see that picture at mikesdailypodcast.com. Mike, John Deere the engineer and I like to think of ourselves as a Tears for Fears rip-off band, because I'm Floyd the Floorman.
Yes, Mike, we can sing a Tears for Fears song for you.
All right, go ahead. Shoot!
Let it all out.
That was really good, thanks. Hey, can you guys do me a favor? Yeah, sure. Don't ever do that again. Tomorrow, the finale of my Into-It interview with Laurel Poeton, plus we'll hear from Benita, the disgruntled fiddle player, and the brewmaster.
Mike Matthews, there's no sidewalks in front of the last place on Earth.
There's not?
Did you just say there's snot?
No.
Because I have a cold and I can't help it.
Oh, sorry. Let me get some vitamin C for you.
That's okay. I think Floyd the Floorman's singing cured it. And cured me of hearing ever again.
Well, Floyd, your singing has cured Chely. What?
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at mikesdailypodcast.com. Email Mike now at mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye.
Rossum.